The security camera footage shows a young woman, a vibrant flash of light in the darkness. It's just after 1 a.m. on a quiet Tuesday morning. She's smiling, hugging her friends goodbye after a long night of studying. But what she doesn't know is that for hours, she has been watched. A car, a white Dodge Charger, has been waiting. Its headlights are off, its engine silent, a predator lurking in the shadows. In this moment, a promising life is about to be extinguished. A meticulous, cowardly plan is about to be put into motion. What could drive someone to such a calculated act of violence? Who was waiting in that car, and why? Welcome back to Case File Chronicle. This is the story of Maple Batalia, a 19-year-old with a life full of dreams. Maple was born in India but grew up in Surrey, British Columbia, in a loving family. She was a straight A student, driven and determined to become a doctor. But she was also a creative soul, a gifted artist who loved to paint and perform. She was an aspiring actress and model with a role in the movie Diary of a Wimpy Kid and a spot in a major model search. Her agency head called her one of the most likable individuals you could ever meet. Maple was busy, balancing her studies at Simon Fraser University with her creative pursuits. Her father proudly called her his most precious jewel. Her friends saw her as the glue that held everyone together. By all accounts, she was a young woman on the cusp of an incredible future. But for 4 years, a dark cloud had hung over her life in the form of her on-again, off-again boyfriend, Gurjinder Dhaliwal, known to everyone as Gary. The relationship was volatile and finally came to an end in the fall of 2011 after Maple discovered he had cheated on her. She was heartbroken but had so much to keep her busy that she began to move on. For Gary, however, there was no moving on. The breakup ignited a terrifying pattern of obsessive and controlling behavior. In the weeks leading up to Maple's death, Gary made over 2,000 phone calls to her. On a single night, he sent her over 300 text messages. He started following her and having his friends follow her, keeping tabs on her every move. His jealousy escalated to violence when he punched a male friend of Maple's who he saw her with at a coffee shop. When Maple tried to intervene, he pushed her to the ground. She called the police, and a no-contact order was put in place. Gary was furious that Maple was not only moving on without him, but thriving. For a man who was already possessive and insecure, the thought that he couldn't have her became unbearable. As the Crown prosecutor would later say, "In this country, men do not get to impose themselves on women." But Gary felt he could. If he couldn't have her, he decided no one would. The stage was set on the evening of September 27, 2011. Maple had gone to the campus library with a friend for a late-night study session. As the hours passed and the night gave way to morning, they decided to call it a day. Maple said her goodbyes and headed to her car on the 3rd floor of the parking lot. It was just after 1 a.m. when a resident across the street heard the sudden, sharp sound of 7 gunshots. He rushed to his window and saw a white Dodge Charger screeching away. People began running into the street, calling 911. When they reached the scene, they found Maple lying on the ground next to her car, a large, bloody kitchen knife nearby. She had been shot 5 times and had severe stab wounds to her head and neck. Though still alive when authorities arrived, she died at the hospital a few hours later. The attack was frenzied and brutally personal. Despite dozens of calls to police, There were no direct witnesses in the parking lot itself. Fear swept through the university campus. Was the killer a random assailant? A robbery gone wrong? But Maple's wallet was found at the scene, untouched. The police worked tirelessly, their numbers swelling to over 50 officers. They had to find the white Dodge Charger. The crucial break came from the extensive surveillance system on campus. Police reviewed hours of footage, and what they discovered was chilling. They saw the same white Dodge Charger enter the parking lot just after 8 p.m. It had circled for a long time before parking, waiting. Whoever was in that car was not there by chance. This was a carefully planned, cold-blooded murder. The killer knew she would be there that night, and they had laid a trap. The painstaking work began to identify the car. The search eventually led them to Gersamar Betty, a close friend of Gary's. Gersamar had rented a white Dodge Charger on September 25th, just 2 days before the murder. And who was with him when he picked up the car? Gary. Even more damning, Gersamar had put the car through a thorough car wash in the hours after the murder, a desperate attempt to erase any trace of the crime. But it wasn't enough. Police managed to track down the car, and in a final piece of damning evidence, they found a shell casing under the hood that matched the ones from the crime scene. Over a year after Maple's death, police arrested both men. Gary Dhaliwal was charged with first-degree murder. His friend, Gersamar Betty, was charged with second-degree murder and being an accessory after the fact. For the Batalia family, the next 4 years were an agonizing wait. The trial was repeatedly delayed, causing immense pain. As her father, Harry, said, "Every day we think, what would have happened?" But before the trial could begin, Gary changed his plea. He pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to life in prison, with no possibility of parole for 21 years. For the family, it was a moment of bittersweet closure.
Thank you to the community members, friends, family who have supported us endlessly through this process. It's been a really long time, and Maple can finally rest in peace knowing that she got some justice. And we just want this to be an example in the community that no matter what you do, it does catch up to you, and justice must be served. And I'm just hoping that she's looking down and is content that she finally got that justice. Thank you.
But the story didn't end there. Gersamar Betty was found not guilty of murder, but was convicted of being an accessory after the fact. He was sentenced to 22 months in prison, but to the family's shock and outrage, he was released after serving just 18 months. As Rosaline Batalia stated, "That 18-month sentence was a slap in my family's face." She said he had the chance to talk his friend out of it, but he chose to be his eyes and ears. Maple Batalia's death was a senseless tragedy. It took 5 years for her family to see a degree of justice, and the pain of her loss is still felt deeply. But her legacy is far from over. Her family created the Maple Batalia Memorial Scholarship for the Arts to help other young, creative women pursue their dreams. Her story has become a powerful call to action against domestic violence. As her father said, "We just want this to be an example in the community that no matter what you do, it does catch up to you. Justice must be served." Maple was a bright, determined young woman whose dreams were extinguished far too soon. As one of her friends once said, her death was like stomping on a flower before it bloomed. But by telling her story, we can ensure that the memory of her life continues to bloom, a warning and an inspiration to us all.